Invocation, please.
Proverbs chapter 16, verse 3 says, "Put your works into the hands of the Lord, and your purposes will be made certain." And then it follows up in verse 9. It says that a man may make plans for his ways, but the Lord is the guide of his steps. So we're doing natural human things here, but obviously we want divine results because Freeport really needs it. So, Father, right now we come into agreement with your plans and your purposes. Obviously, we're making them based upon the information, the knowledge, and the wisdom that we have, based upon all the facts and all the criteria that we have available to us. But we know that you know way more and you know way deeper than we do. So, Father, as we dive into and open up all the different layers of what's going on in our precious city, we thank you that you are going to impart divine wisdom. You're going to give us revelation. You're going to make the hidden things come out into the open, and you're going to reveal the plans and the ways of every person's heart so that we can design the plans and have what you desire for us to have and not have what our own hearts desire. We thank you that you are working with every single person in this room right now to bring into the greatest of prosperity, the greatest of divine health, the greatest of the glory of the God into this situation, into this city, into all of the efforts that we have for you. Father, we thank you that there is a desire that is in all of these people here, that they want to see things right. And we thank you that you are the one that designs right. We give you the praise and the glory and the honor for all the good things that are about to take place. And we pray together in unity through the bond of peace in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. And now that it's 6 o'clock, we'll call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderpersons Brashaw,
Here.
Keister,
Here.
Chesney,
Here.
McClanathan,
Here.
Ross,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
Busker,
Here.
Clem is absent.
And the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderperson Brashaw.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. First on the agenda is the approval. Is there such a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderperson Brashaw, seconded by Alderman Keister for the approval of the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Next is approval of the minutes from December 18th, 2017. Is there such a motion for the approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Brashaw, seconded by Alderman Busker to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Public comments, there aren't any listed on here, so we'll move on to item number 4, which is the consent agenda. And all the items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and will be acted as one, unless there's a member of the council that would like to have something removed for further discussion. Seeing none, the consent agenda consists of the approval to receive and place on file the building permits December 2017, the approval of finance bills payable in the total of $466,052.93, and the approval of payroll on pay period ending December 23rd, 2017, in the total of $456,491.14. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Ross to approve the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Brashaw,
Aye.
Keister,
Aye.
Chesney, McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
passes 7-0.
Thank you. Next is the second reading of ordinance 2018-01. Madam Clerk, could you please read this for the record?
An ordinance adopting a policy prohibiting sexual harassment of city for the City of Freeport. At the December 11 Committee of the Whole, a motion to move forward for approval was made by Alderperson McClanathan, seconded by Alderman Chesney, and the matter was laid over to December 18 by unanimous vote. At the December 18 council meeting, Alderperson Keister made a motion to move forward for approval, seconded by Alderperson Chesney, and it was automatically laid over to tonight's meeting.
Manager Crowe, is there something new you would like to add to this?
The only thing I will let the council know is that we were contacted by the state today, and once this is passed, we have to forward this the ordinance to the state to prove to them, State Attorney General, to prove to them that we've passed it, so.
Any further discussion on this ordinance? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the passage of ordinance 2018-01?
Busker.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker. Did I read it wrong?
You started with Keister instead of Brashaw.
I'm so sorry. And did I get a
You missed.
aye for Busker? I didn't hear that, and I'm sorry. Brashaw,
Aye.
for a total of 7-0.
Thank you. All right. We'll go on to the first reading of ordinance 2018-02. Madam Clerk, could you please read this for the record?
An ordinance amending Title 10 Employment Provisions, Chapter 290, Compensation and Benefits, Section 290.02, Compensation Plan, and Section 290.08, Overtime of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Freeport. At the December 11 Committee of the Whole, a motion to move forward for approval was made by Alderperson Brashaw, seconded by Alderperson Keister, and the matter was laid over to tonight's meeting by unanimous voice vote.
Manager Crowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This puts us, changes our ordinances to basically put us in line with what is in our handbook and makes this, particularly in the sections dealing with overtime and comp time. Just as you go through the overtime and comp time, we're doing away with comp time for non-union employees and requiring the approval of overtime at the department head forward to the city manager level. And so this puts us in line with the handbook.
Madam Mayor.
Questions? Alderman Brashaw.
And this is only for the listening public, Manager Crowe, but can you verify again that this is only for non-union employees?
This is only for non-union employees. The union employees are covered by their contracts.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
motion to move it forward. Second.
Okay, we have a motion to move ordinance 2018-02 forward by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Chesney. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor.
Alderman Smith.
So Lowell, this obviously brings it congruent with the new handbook that we passed a couple of weeks ago, or did we?
Actually, you're going to pass the ordinance tonight.
Right.
To the first reading of tonight.
But, you know, my question is this obviously pertains to non-union employees, but there are occasions when non-union employees are asked to work not just a little bit of time over and above their requirement, but a lot. Speaking from somebody who has some experience in that regard, I can tell you that there have been many occasions when, as a lieutenant, I was called out in the middle of the night and was asked to investigate some pretty serious matters that in some instances had me working for 48 hours straight. And I guess what I'd like is some assurance that that sort of effort wouldn't be overlooked by the passage of this ordinance.
So we are in executive session going to discuss particular non-union employees that may be affected by that.
So I'll take that as a yes. Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we will move the ordinance 2018-02 on to the next regularly scheduled council meeting. On to item number 7 is the first reading of ordinance 2018-03. Madam Clerk, could you please read this for the record?
An ordinance amending Part 2, Administration Code, Title 8, Boards, Commissions, Bureaus, Chapter 274, Airport Commission, and other sections of the codified ordinances of the City of Freeport regarding the Freeport Albertus Municipal Airport. At the December 11 Committee of the Whole, a motion to move forward for approval was made by Alderperson Chesney, seconded by Alderperson Clem, and the matter was laid over to tonight's meeting by unanimous voice vote.
Manager Crowe.
This is to move forward the disestablishment of the Airport Commission in accordance with, we are not required to have an Airport Commission unless we have an Airport Authority. We do not have an Airport Authority. That has to be, there are several ways to be that established, but we do not have it, so an Airport Commission. I have already met with the pilots, the flying club. I'm going to set up a monthly meeting with them to discuss their issues. And the reason I'm not requesting this to be waived is that I'm going to meet with the Airport Commission and talk with them in between the first and second reading.
Questions?
Mayor.
Madam,
Alderperson Bradshaw.
thank you. Manager Crowe, was there something that we had to have legal look at on this? I thought there was something that somebody had to look over.
No, Roxanne already reviewed this, and this is in accordance with the state law.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Smith.
Motion to move it forward.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Busker to move ordinance 2018-03 onto the next regularly scheduled meeting. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we will move on to item number 8, which is the first reading of ordinance 2018-04. Madam Clerk, could you please read this for the record?
An ordinance adopting a revised City of Freeport Employee Handbook. At the December 11 Committee of the Whole, a motion to move forward for first reading was made by Alderperson McClanathan, seconded by Alderperson Bradshaw, and passed unanimously.
Thank you. Manager Crowe.
Yes, I have received some comments back on the handbook. Hopefully all of you had an opportunity to review it. This is the adoption of this, and it makes this as the binding document unless there is separate letters that are also adopted by council. For the non-union in there, it also applies each one of the unions will get copies of this as we go forward, but if you'll notice within the handbook, it does say that their contracts overweigh the handbook. So this, we are a good human resources practice is that we review the handbook every 2 years to make sure we're in compliance. This brings us in compliance with the ADA requirements, sexual harassment requirements, FLSA requirements that our old handbook was out of date on.
Madam Mayor?
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you. And Manager Crowe, between the first and the second reading, there's a possibility still to add a couple of fire and police addendums. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Alderman Chesney.
motion to move it forward.
Second.
Either myself or Bradshaw, whichever one you want.
Take your pick.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for moving ordinance 2018-04 forward by Alderman Chesney, seconded by Alderman McClanathan. Is there any further discussion? Attorney Zito.
Thank you, Mayor. And just so the council is aware, as Manager Crowe referenced, that between now and final approval, that the handbook will need to be forwarded to the union so that they can weigh in and just kind of sign off on it. So we'd send them a non-red line version, but that just has to happen. So I just want to make that, remind the council as to that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we will move that on to the next regularly scheduled meeting. Item number 9 is the first reading of ordinance 2018-05. Madam Clerk, could you please read this?
An ordinance amending various provisions of the codified ordinances of the City of Freeport to provide for the removal of appointed members to boards, commissions, and bureaus of the city due to lack of meeting attendance.
Manager Crowe.
Yes, you'll notice that this is a modification to an ordinance that we just passed. So there was a case taken from a home rule community dealing specifically with library boards. So, and our language they said that home rule communities are allowed to hold library boards accountable for attendance, but there was specific language, and that ruling was passed down in late November, early December timeframe, and this puts us in line with that language, modifies it to address the library board.
Mayor,
Alderman Chesney.
I think this is a good ordinance, something we've been working on for, at least discussing for quite some time. Is there any particular reason that we wouldn't move this forward more quickly? You know, given that this already came out of committee, and I would imagine most people in the community would want appointed people to attend their meetings, so,
Yes.
okay. Motion to move it forward?
Second.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Bradshaw.
motion to waive the rules and for immediate passage.
Second.
Okay, well, we have a motion made by Alderman Chesney, seconded by Alderman Busker, to move ordinance 2018-05 forward, and we have a motion made by Alderman Bradshaw, seconded by Alderman Keister, for the suspension of the rules. Suspension of the rules is non-debatable and must pass by a 2/3 majority. So, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the suspension of the rules only?
Brashaw,
Aye.
Keister,
Aye.
Chesney,
Aye.
McClanathan, Ross,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
The suspension passes 7-0.
Okay, so thank you. And so now before you is the final passage, final reading for ordinance 2018-05. Any further discussion on this ordinance? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the passage of this ordinance?
Alderpersons Brashaw,
Aye.
Keister,
Aye.
Chesney,
Aye.
McClanathan, Ross,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and the ordinance passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item number 10 is the first reading of ordinance 2018-06. Madam Clerk, could you please read this?
A special ordinance for variation, permit, or amendment of codified ordinances of Freeport, Illinois regarding Casey's General Store.
Director McDonald.
Thank you. Casey's Retail Company submitted an application for a special use permit. The relief sought by these documents on file was a special use permit under subsection 1252.05B entitled Special Uses of the City of Freeport's Codified Ordinance to allow the sale of alcoholic beverages to be consumed off premises in a B3 commercial and wholesale zoning classification. The real estate that is subject matter of the pending action is described as follows: 1775 Southwest Avenue in Freeport. Per city ordinance, all adjacent property owners received a certified mailing of the notification of the public hearing. A sign was erected at the project site in the proper color and size indicating all pertinent information regarding Casey's application for a special use permit. Notification of the public hearing was published on the city's website and in the Freeport Journal Standard, and the application has been kept on file in the city's Community Development Department and made available for public review. No protests or comments were received prior to or at the public hearing. The Planning Commission reviewed the application and staff report on January 4th and determined that there were no adverse findings. The request was approved 7-0 by the Planning Commission and is brought before council tonight for consideration.
Any discussion?
Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
Just a quick question. I don't know how close Casey's is to opening. Is this something that we would want to suspend rules and pass this evening, or we have time? Okay.
Yeah, it would be advised.
Be advised that we suspend the rules here so that they can put packaged liquor within the store. The opening date is scheduled for the first week in February, but they're going to be bringing the liquor into the store, and they need to have the liquor license approved prior to that.
Make a motion that we move it forward.
Second. Mayor,
Alderman McClanathan.
I had a question for the director. When the Planning Commission, I believe this is in your report, but just for the public also, when the Planning Commission reviewed this, one of the factors that they looked at was that this, many of the surrounding also gas stations have a use consistent with this special use that will be granted here.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
Motion to suspend the rules and approve it tonight.
Second.
Mayor,
Alderman Smith.
before we move that forward, can I ask the director one question? So is Casey's following the normal procedure for a packaged liquor license here, and it's just it's a late application. I'm not sure why this is up before us tonight. I mean, I get that there are lots of gas stations, lots of establishments in Freeport who sell packaged liquor, so why didn't Casey's follow whatever normal procedure those other?
Alderman Smith, can I answer that? We actually had a planning commission meeting scheduled in December. However, the official notice of the planning commission meeting did not go out. So it was supposed to be reviewed then, and then it would have come to the council on the 18th with the follow-on for approval here. So it is not a fault of Casey's.
Well, I'm not suggesting. I'm not suggesting.
They're following the normal
Casey's
procedures.
a great company, and they're more than
It's-
competent to sell liquor. They've got establishments all over the Midwest.
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't cast aspersions upon Casey.
In fact, we held a special planning commission meeting to do this because we failed to get the notice out that the planning commission was supposed to happen.
Any further discussion? Then before you is a motion made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Chesney to move ordinance 2018-06 forward, and then a suspension of the rules requested by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Chesney. So suspension of the rules must pass by a 2/3 majority and is non-debatable. So Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the suspension of the rules only?
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney. McLanathan. Ross. Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
That passes 7-0.
Thank you. So now before you for the final passage of 2018-06. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the passage of this ordinance?
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
McLanathan. Ross. Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And the ordinance passes 7-0.
Thank you. On to item number 11 is the first reading of ordinance 2018-07. Madam Clerk, would you please read this for the record?
An ordinance of the City of Freeport expressing an official intent regarding the negotiation of redevelopment agreements and the reimbursement of certain expenditures in connection with the Galena Corridor Business District project area.
Manager Crowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is an ordinance to allow us to, it's required for us to pay for any of the development of the business district. We had passed an ordinance to allow us to reach back 6 months as we go forward. This will also authorize Ellers, and we're going to be going through the resolution adopting Ellers' contract here later on to do negotiate in our stead. Attorney Zito and I have been in communication on a regular basis over the last 3 weeks with Ellers as they are going forward. We actually have 2 RDAs sitting out there that we're going to be negotiating over the next 3 to 4 months, and this will give them permission to act as our agent in this, as well as being able to pay them out of the business district. One of those developers has been in contact very closely with the mayor over the last several calls over the last 10 days. And we feel that it is prudent to prove to that developer that we are serious about this, that we waive the rules on this one as we go forward as well.
Mayor,
Alderman Smith.
a motion to move it forward.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to move this ordinance forward by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Keister. Is there a motion for suspension of the rules?
So move.
Second.
That was Busker, right? Okay. And we also have a motion made by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Busker for the suspension of the rules, which is non-debatable and must pass by a 2/3 majority. Madam Clerk, would you please take the motion, or take the roll on the suspension of the rules only?
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
McLanathan.
Aye.
Ross. Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
The suspension passes 7-0.
Thank you. So now before you is the final passage for ordinance 2018-07. Any further discussion?
Mayor,
Alderman McClanathan.
thank you. Just want to clarify a little bit what you were talking about, Manager Crowe. And looking through this ordinance that we have here, it specifically is allowing us to work with elders, and we've been working on this corridor for a variety of different things. This isn't the first thing that we've been looking at. This allows us to look at the business district aspect of it.
That's correct.
And it allows us to have some RDA negotiations. It allows us to recuperate some expenses potentially down the road through the passage of this. And it also explicitly has Section 6, a non-binding effect, which states that notwithstanding the foregoing, all negotiations and agreements relating to the redevelopment of portions of the business district project area shall be and remain non-binding on the city unless and until they are formally approved by the corporate authorities.
That's
So,
correct.
If we do get to a proposal that we like, it's going to have to come back to council.
It has to be approved by council in an ordinance form, so it'll have to come back into re-review. This strictly allows us to begin to negotiate and allows us to look at the business district. We had originally approved the TIF district. However, in our discussion and as we move forward with Ellers, we found the TIF district was not currently, after discussions with the township assessor and township personnel, that was not a viable means to do redevelopment in this area. The business district does, what the business district does is it gives us an ability to put an extra cent on a particular pin for the businesses that are within that pin. When I mean by pin, say a strip mall or a particular development, and that plus sales tax, that sales tax plus our state sales tax and home rule tax can be returned to facilitate the development of the particular project. But it will not affect anybody outside that particular pin, and the pin is whatever that developer owns as he goes forward.
Further discussion on this ordinance?
My iPhone picked up that old comment.
Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you take the roll on the final passage of ordinance 2018-07?
Mayor Miller, on that original motion, was that made by Smith and seconded by Keister?
Yes.
Okay. And Brashaw?
Aye.
Keister?
Aye.
Chesney?
Aye?
McClanathan?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Busker?
Aye. Aye.
I'm sorry. And the ordinance passes 7-0.
Thank you. Next is the adoption of Resolution 2018-01. Madam Clerk, could you please read this for the record?
Resolution of the City of Freeport authorizing and approving services agreement with Ellers and Associates Incorporated.
Manager Crowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the authorization resolution authorizing Ellers to be contracted to create business district and negotiate for the two developments that we talked about. The initial projected cost is $10,000 through the initial development, and then $12,000 for the follow-on negotiations. And since you just passed the last resolution, we can take this money out of that business district if established.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Chesney, seconded by Alderman Busker for the adoption of Resolution 2018-01. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor Miller.
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you. Manager Crowe, just for listening public, I wanted to state that this is a business development consulting service, and this is a firm that has a lot of experience in TIFs and can help Freeport move forward with some of these TIF business matters, correct?
And in this point, they have experience in both TIF and business districts, and in this point, they're doing the business district for us. They are considered to be the expert in the state of Illinois in developing both TIFs and business districts.
Follow up?
Yes.
Thank you. And Manager Crowe, is it regular and consistent with most communities to hire a business such as this to help guide the city with this kind of?
It is, particularly with business districts, because they're a little bit more complicated than they're easier for us because as a taxing body, we're the only ones that have to pass it, but we have to make sure that when we're doing the redevelopment agreement, that there are guidelines as to how to do the sales tax and develop as a reimbursement.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the adoption of Resolution 2018-01?
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
McLanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And that's adopted 7-0.
Thank you. Next is approval of bids. We have an approval of capping of potable well, water wells number 2 and number 6 at 406 Brick Street. Director Kupansky.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Back in February of last year, with routine sampling taking place, there were some unregulated contaminants that were found in the sampling, and what had happened was that those wells were taken out of service. And basically, with them being taken out of service and no longer being used, at some point, they need to be abandoned or capped. In the engineering evaluation that took place in November, that was one of the items that was noted, and I was already in the process of writing a bid spec to go and get the task done. So with that, we had a bid opening on the 28th of December. We had 5 submittals, 4 that were deemed responsible submitted bids. And of the firms that submitted, Albrecht Well Drilling out of Ohio, Illinois, submitted an amount to do the work for $49,678. Albrecht, in reviewing records in my office, has done work for us before, and in speaking with the previous director, Tom Glendenning, has said that they've performed responsibly, admirably, and the takeaway is looking to go and get approval for the lowest responsible bid from Albrecht Well Drilling of Ohio, Illinois, for an amount not to succeed $49,678.
Mayor?
Questions? Alderman McLanathan?
Not a question, I just move to adopt that recommendation.
Second. It can be Pat.
Either or.
Mayor Miller?
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you. For the listening public, there were several sealed bids on this, and one of them was thrown out for not being properly submitted. Is that correct?
That's correct. The one bid was emailed and faxed, and in the bid spec that was sent outward, it was supposed to be a sealed bid brought on and delivered via FedEx, U.S. Post Office in person, et cetera.
One follow-up question?
Yes.
Thank you. And when I looked over the bids, in throwing that one out, which was actually kind of a high bid anyhow, I noticed that the other sealed bids that were legal went up as high as $118,175. So this one is actually less than half the price of the highest bid. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I would like to make a motion to accept this contract with Albrecht Well Drilling in the amount of $49,000.
Actually, Alderman McLanathan.
Oh, please forgive me.
You can have it
That's okay.
It's double motioned.
We'll let you vote, Sally.
Sorry about that. I should have paid attention.
Any further discussion?
Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
Yes, just real quickly, once these wells are capped, then we are done with them, or do these have to be followed up by the EPA over a period of time, or how does that work?
Well, one thing with it is that when before the wells are capped, they're going to be videoed from the bottom up to see what all's there. Then they're going to add material. Then it's going to be grouted, and then the well casing that was from the bottom of the well to ground level, where the pumps and motors are, it's going to be buried 5 foot below the surface, so it's going to look like it's never been there before. And then that's all we'll have to do with it.
Okay, thank you.
Any further? Seeing none, we have a motion made by Alderman McLanathan, seconded by Alderman Busker for the approval of capping wells 2 and 6 by Albrecht Well Drilling and not to exceed the amount of $49,678. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the approval?
Brashaw,
Aye.
Keister,
Aye.
Chesney,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
and that is approved 7-0.
Thank you. Next, item number 14 is the approval of contract for audit of sales tax receipts the city receives from the state of Illinois. Proposal for software for administration audit of collection of the motor fuel tax and the food and beverage and the hotel motel tax. Director Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. As of our Government Solutions gave a presentation to the council a couple of weeks ago regarding their software. We're recommending that the city enter a contract with them to perform a municipal audit of funds we receive from the state of Illinois. These funds would include electric, natural gas, telecommunication, and cable franchise fees, as well as the sales tax and use tax. The cost of the city to hire as of our will be a 60-40 split with any newfound money. If the company does not find any newfound money for us, then there's no cost to the city. We're also looking at utilizing their sales tax application as well to kind of keep a better track of sales tax that we do receive from the state, and that way we could see if there's any discrepancies or any trends that are happening before we actually get the money in hand. And the third application is a local administered tax application, and this application would be software that will allow us and allow our businesses to electronically file their food and beverage tax, the hotel motel tax, and the local gasoline tax, and any other business taxes that we may have at that time.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. Manager Crowe, I just want some assurances from you and your staff that we're going to be conducting this audit, but there's going to be very careful consideration as it relates to how this interacts with businesses, and we were given assurances from the outside company that they would not be contacting them directly without your direct oversight, and that's my only concern is that both of these two items coming forward on item 14 and 15 under other are that we're careful and soft-handed in our approach on how we go about this.
And I'll give you my assurance that the only businesses that if we contact any businesses, it'll be done through me, and the council will be aware of that as we go forward. So, and this is strictly to identify what should be coming to us, and we will not, if we have an issue, the city, the council will be informed of that.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. I'm seeing the three portions. I remember a lot of the discussion being on the first portion, particularly with the electrical, natural gas, and saying, we can plug in these addresses and we can see if there's something that there should be an address here that wasn't on that. I don't remember as much on the second and third portion here. Could you talk to me? It looks like the third application, it says it's a local administered tax application, allows them to electronically receive these funds. How does that differ from the current structure? Can you explain to me the difference, first of all, in the third application between what we're doing now and what this will allow us to do, outside of obviously just saying we can electronically receive it? What's the current?
Well, currently people are either mailing in or bringing their tax returns and giving us a check. What the software that we're proposing, they'll be able to do it electronically and also not only file but also pay electronically. So save on our time and expense, and it save on their time and expense as well.
Okay, so that application should be basically an efficiency improvement for
Yes.
everybody. Can you explain to me a little bit more about how that second sales tax application with the first year training and setup works?
Okay, we're supposed to get CDs from the Department of Revenue every 4 months, and with this new software, we can now track how those sales tax monies are coming in. Where right now we cannot do that. So if there's a trend someplace, we could see if a business is having a problem because their sales tax is going down, that we may want to go out there and visit with them to see what we could do to help them and see if they're in any trouble, or just to know what's happening in our community, the overall economy.
We currently, with these CDs, we don't have any way to track it. It's lagging, and this will give us an ability to track this and identify sales tax is a good indication that a business is in trouble, and where we can get involved in that. If we've seen a reduction in sales tax from a particular business, we can reach out to them and say, hey, are you in trouble, rather than all of a sudden we have one business today that is 6 months behind on their sales tax paying out, and they're in real financial trouble.
Follow-up, Mayor? Is this information then that eventually we usually get at some point anyway, in some form or another?
The CD we have not been receiving.
It's something that, the CD is something that Director Bugutz and I are used to seeing in our other communities. And you have to file a request with the state comptroller to get those. That's something we're moving forward to do, to track it. We have not been receiving them.
So while we haven't been receiving in the past, it's something we could have been receiving in the
We
past.
could have,
correct.
and one thing I want to point out too, it's confidential information. Only the people that, well, I was going to say, I think only the city manager or myself are probably the only two people that would be allowed to see that information.
Okay.
On the release document that goes in the comptroller, as to the disc will be mailed to the city manager, and we have to say who gets access to it. We also have to say that we cannot be used to basically penalize the business at that point.
Thank you both.
Further discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Buster, seconded by Alderman Ross for the approval of this contract. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll in this passage?
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you. Next is item number 15, is the approval of the contract of collection contract for collection services with Municipal Collection Services. That's a lot of collection words. Director Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. As council's aware, we have a large water and sewer outstanding balance, outstanding payments in that, and talked to a few of the collection agencies at the Illinois Municipal League, and came across Municipal Collection Services, Inc., and interviewed them. They're municipal centered, and by that I mean their only clients they have are municipalities. And after meeting with them and talking over their contract and that, I'm recommending that we use MCSI for our debt collection services. They also have a program that we could tap. It's called a local debt recovery program that's administered by the Illinois Office of the Controller. And there we can place a lien on a tax refund on someone that has a outstanding bill with the city. And so that'll help us also to regain some of these past monies that are due us.
Questions for Director Bucus?
Mayor?
Alderman Smith.
So what we're talking about here primarily is past due water bills?
Well, not only water bills, but also parking fines, building permits, nuisance complaints. But right now we have our biggest outstanding bills right now are in the water and sewer department.
And do we know, or have we looked at whether or not that debt is dispersed among a bunch of subscribers, or is there, I mean, is it limited to just several or a few?
No, there's quite a few, and quite a few are rather old that we may not ever collect from them because they're sold now.
So what we're doing right now is for owner-occupied buildings, we're filing liens against them. We started this is something that Steve, particular with the, Steve Cox and I started, particularly with the water. We're running about a 10% recovery rate right now, which is, they predict that they can get to the point where they're recovering 20 to 25% over a 3-year period. Where we find the majority of our recovery happens for both the grass and nuisance violations and also the water and sewer is when the property goes up for sale. And then we do a negotiated settlement for that, where the seller pays a portion, what they can afford. We've been able to recover, I say, about 8 to 10% of that right now, though, out of those particular negotiated settlements. We've had 3 major ones where we had almost $8,000 outstanding to us, and we were able to get $2,500 out. So it was actually a little bit more than 10%.
And what's, follow up, Mayor? What's the fee that this company collects?
It's 30, sorry.
What is their vig, so to speak?
It's 32%, I believe.
Further questions?
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you. Manager Crowe, is it true that we can put part of the collection fee back onto the billing of the original person that owed the money to?
So
There's a
right,
fee.
right now, we're only going after owner occupied, but with the lien process, this will allow us to get the tenants that, we have a large number of tenants that have outstanding that we have not been addressing, and this will allow us to address the tenants that are leaving that owe us that money as we go out.
Follow up? Yeah, I understand that. I believe I know what you're talking about there, but is there an additional fee we can charge the people that owe the outstanding amounts so that we don't have to pay the total fee to the company that's doing the collection?
Yes, there is, and then their collection actually dropped from 32% down to like 25.9%. But in order to do that, we're going to have to pass another ordinance allowing us to tack on the administrative fee, the collection fee.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Alderman Smith.
The lion's share of these debts, though, are virtually uncollectible, wouldn't you say, Lowell?
It's been pretty interesting since we started putting out liens. We're running, like I said, about a 10 to 15% return.
But the liens are collectible on the sale of the property.
Well, actually, we have people that are coming in and paying off the bills that on owner-occupied ones. That what we're finding is that some of these owner-occupied ones is it's a family residence that they haven't sold, and they decide that they're going to reoccupy it, so they come back and pay it, or that it's their mother's or father's home and they want to clear the lien against it. So we've been running since we've been doing it. It's been doing, Diane and Steve and I have been spending about 5 to 6 hours a week processing these liens, and then Shelley, I don't know what, Shelley's been working with us too.
Probably they have time as well.
So this would also relieve some of that, and they would go into that, but it's the liens, we need the liens to ensure the properties are, when they aren't sold without settling them. And even then, we have to typically negotiate down, and what we have found, so if there's not an outstanding not a lien on the outstanding water bill, we cannot hold up in court the outstanding amount of money. So that's why we've been putting liens on these properties, because they can sell the properties, and then the only thing we then can collect is anything within the last year, typically within the water, and any ordinance violations that we've had. That's what we've found when we've been challenged. So that's one of the reasons why we're going for the liens.
One other question, if I may, Mayor. I see the term of the contract is 36 months. I mean, is the company unwilling to do it for a less of a term than that, like perhaps a year?
Well, part of it's their resources they're putting into it. They know the first year they're not going to collect very many debts, but as they work on those debts and work with those people that they're trying to collect from, they find over the 3 years their collections will be going up.
Thank you, Mayor.
The goal is to they think by year 3 they can be collecting 20 to 25% of the outstanding bills.
Mayor?
Alderman Ross.
Yes, Manager Crowe. If the tenant in this property decides to leave state, what happens then?
Be a little bit harder collection, but but they will continue to try to collect from them. They have a certain procedure that they'll go through, and I'm not sure how many attempts they would make once they know they're out of state. But one thing we do have to our advantage is if we use the local government, local debt recovery program, LDROP program, is that if they're due any type of refund from the state, we would have first dibs on it. That before they would get the refund, that money would come to us.
One more question, Mayor.
Alderman Ross.
Can we go to the next state if we knew where they were at? To do the same?
It has to have reciprocity within the state. Right. And some states, Illinois doesn't have reciprocity with a lot of states, I will tell you that. Right. even Todd will tell you, he
don't comply.
Yeah.
Don't comply, in other words.
Yeah. Yes.
Mayor Miller,
Alderman Brashaw.
motion for approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion for approval made by Alderman Brashaw, seconded by Alderman Keister for the approval of the contract with MCSI. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on this approval?
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
No.
Busker.
Aye.
Passes 6-1.
Thank you. Item number 16 is the approval of purchase of a heated patch box for the hot mix patching. Director Dole.
Good evening. Thank you. By now, you should have had an opportunity to look at some of the materials that were given to you in the packet. What we're looking to purchase is a self-contained steel box, insulated box, that is placed in the back of a one-ton truck. The cold patch is placed in this box. We hook the exhaust pipe from the truck into the box, and that keeps the materials warm so we can cold patch in sub-zero weather. And the last couple of weeks have proven to be real necessary for something like this, because I haven't been able to send a patch truck out for probably 3 weeks. The material gets in the box now, goes out on the street, it freezes solid into the box. So we were actually out today because 30 degrees, but this will allow us that opportunity to basically turn cold patch into hot mix all the time. So we keep our inventoried material inside, so it's constantly warm. Overnight, if it's on the truck, that truck is inside, but the minute it hits 6 below, we're out of business. So this box, and it's to me fairly inexpensive, will really be able to put the crews out there in any kind of weather, and I think it's really necessary in order for us to patch this time of year, which we really need to.
Mayor.
Manager Rowe.
So this is a box that both of us have seen demonstrated, and it gives us the benefit of actually being, as Director Dole said, hot patch in the middle of the winter. Communities north of in the northern states are more and more going to this, and it really, cold patch will not last, as many of you are aware, and Tom will attest to that, for a very short period of time. This gives us, by doing this, the hot patch will more likely to benefit from putting a hot patch in there, keeping it, the snow plows won't tear it up, and allow the crews. And what's nice about it is it's a self-contained unit. It also has a nice, if you've seen the video, so the crews actually benefit. They don't hurt their backs, where now they have to get up in the back of the trucks and get it out. It actually feeds it right down into the, so there's some benefit from this, and it really allows our crews to continue to patch anytime during the year. You can continue to use this even during the summer time frame and
Oh, absolutely. Well, once it's mounted to one of our trucks, it'll stay pretty much full-time as a patch truck. But you do have the advantage to remove it and use that truck as a regular dump truck anytime you want to.
Mayor Miller.
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you. I'm not sure who this question is. I did watch the video, and I thank you for all the links that you sent us. I was just intrigued by this because that's one of my number one complaints from my constituents are those potholes, and there's some big ones right now. So this looks like a fun thing to do. I mean, when I was watching it, and the video showed that it was sub-zero temperature that these men were working in with their big suits. I do have a couple questions, though. They did offer a few additional options because this box weighs over 900 pounds. They have a forklift guide to lift the box safely that they recommended to go with it, and I didn't see that in the original bid. And also a 90-degree elbow design to divert the tailpipe discharge without making it all rubberized. And I was wondering if you'd considered adding those to the bid or how much those options were.
The forklift attachment, we've seen this demonstrated at the city yards. We're very confident that we can get that loaded in and out safely. And the tailpipe on our particular units are custom size anyway, so the elbow wouldn't fit our truck. It's an odd oval-shaped tail. So we have to get a special piece anyway to fit the two vehicles that would accommodate one of these boxes.
You have someone that can build that?
They'll build it, but it has to, I already sent the specs for the year and the make model of the vehicle, and it's not round, it's oval shaped, so it would have to be a custom-made, a steel elbow anyway.
And is that in the bid too then?
That's in the bid, yeah. He had that information before he sent me the price, yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Also, and I don't know if I mentioned it, the sales representative from Integrity Sales will come out and actually train our crew on proper pothole patching along with this box, which is a great thing because I have some young members of the crew that could use that.
Okay.
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. Director Dole, just a quick question. Has this been a previous request in previous years? This would seem to me like something that we should have had a long time ago. What was is this a new technology, or is this something that was rejected in previous arrangements, or why didn't this come forward a long time ago? Because if there's one thing that every resident despises is hitting that pothole.
Yes,
So
I agree.
I would think that this would be very obvious.
Yes, well, this is not new technology. I've had this actually demonstrated to me 2 times. The price hasn't changed a whole lot. It was just never purchased. I can only say that. The money only went so far. But, for what you're getting, it's a fairly inexpensive purchase for what we're going to gain out of this tool. And I will be honest with you, I wrote another one into the next budget because sending one crew out is great. Sending two crews out is fantastic.
Mayor?
And I'm a big believer in this too, Alderman Chesney. So he had a backer in
Yeah,
me on
that's
this.
right.
So.
Alderman Keister.
Yeah, it's just real quickly, looking at the pictures and stuff here. How difficult is this to get in and out? I mean, is it just, when it's set in there, it's just simple tie downs and then hooked up with the thing? So if, and I'm going back a few years, but I don't know if you remember when we had major storms and we had to use every truck we had to pick up debris and stuff, it would be quick and easy to take this out and use it for that?
It is. There's 4 eyelets, eye hooks, and we'll use chain binders to hold it into the box, undo the tailpipe, and it's gone. And the shovel tray is just in the receiver hitch, so you just unpin that and take it away. Very simple in and out.
Follow up, Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
Motion to approve.
Mayor,
Alderman Ross.
Director Doe, does this work on both gas and diesel?
Yeah, yeah. Hot exhaust. Anything with hot exhaust. So yes, and our trucks are diesel.
That's what yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Chesney for the approval of the purchase of the heated patch box. Any further questions or discussion?
Mayor?
Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. I'm looking at the notes from Manager Crow. The cost of this package is $7,000. Is that correct?
It's $6,500 for the unit, $350 for delivery. So we kind of rounded up there a little bit. We looked for 7,000 in the budget just to make sure we had it covered.
And you indicated it's not new technology. I don't imagine, we didn't go out for any solicit a variety of bids. You guys just were comfortable with this company. How is this compared to any other companies that provide this service?
What I've found is there's no other box like this one. There's patch boxes that are trailered units, and they're heated by propane, and they're probably about 30 grand. And so this is a very unique box. I can't find one that is equal to it that you just drop inside of a dump body.
And we did get RNow, who provided the Vector, provided us bids on theirs, and there's a tow behind, so we did compare it to the tow behind with that.
Much more expensive on those. They're nice, the state has one, but
All right,
we like to stay a little bit more compact in tighter areas.
thanks.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. I think it's just a comment, Manager Crow. I believe our purchasing ordinance provides you latitude up to $10,000. So not that we can't have this as a separate line item, but just for the sake of keeping a clean agenda, you could probably put this under the consent agenda and we could pull it off if we have questions, because it's
All right.
under 10,000. So appreciate that you're being cautious, but you know, we don't want to micromanage your process, and certainly I think that we could trust you to make a $5,000 or $6,000 decision. But it's certainly good to know that this technology is out there and that we're going to be making this purchase.
I think
So
we wanted to talk to you about it a little bit too, so you understand.
I think it's great. I
Yeah.
think it's great. I just want you guys to know that we can trust your judgment on items such as these. So.
Mayor?
Alderman Busker.
Yeah, just a comment more than a question. I think it's great that we're able to do this. I imagine it'll make it a lot easier to work around the mix plants' schedules. You guys don't have to worry about that anymore to just get patch.
Yeah, we stockpile pretty good at this time of year. We go get it because they shut down out at Civil, and number one, it's frozen out there, and it goes away very quickly. So we've got a pretty good stockpile. Don't tell anybody. We keep a good stockpile in the garage.
Further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the approval of this purchase?
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
McLanathan. Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have department head reports. Finance.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Finance Department mailed out requests for proposals for auditing services to 11 accounting firms this past week. We're also had 2 software demonstrations, and we have 6 more to go, and the last one being on January 29th. So sometime in February, we'll be coming to you with a recommendation on new software. And then lastly, we're starting the fiscal year 19 budget. We have our first budget meeting with department head on Wednesday.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Bucus? Seeing none, Community Economic Developer.
Thank you. Just wanted to mention that we received 5 applications for the facade grant program this year, and the facade committee did the first review and will be making recommendations to the Historic Preservation Commission that'll be meeting on the 16th and making their final decisions to bring before council after that.
Thank you. Questions for Director McDonald? Seeing none, Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With the warmer temperatures, our guys are going to be out patching. We just covered the box, but at least it's going to be warmer enough now that we can do it from the truck bed. Our plow drivers did strike a mailbox on Woodside Drive, and we've talked through it with him, and we'll fix that as soon as we kind of get the ground to thaw out and we can get some post-driven. We're in the process of coordinating with IDOT, trying to close out some of our past construction section numbers. We currently have what looks to be 18 open, ranging all the way back from 1990. So hopefully we can start getting that kind of closed up. And then we're going to be in contact with McClure tomorrow to start setting up that 3rd Ward Town Hall meeting for the Peck Prairie Path.
Questions for Public Works? Seeing none, we'll move on. Director Dole, do you have something else you wanted to add?
Two things. I should have mentioned that this box, I can probably get it delivered by the end of the week because it is a stock item. So I'll call him in the morning. We took delivery of our first leased vehicle this afternoon, a 2018 Dodge Ram, which will be utilized for our mowing team that goes out, mows all the grasses and so forth in the town once we get it set up with lights and decals and so forth. But we're on our way, and he took one of our gems away with him today, so I hope the guy made it. He had 160 miles to drive in that thing, so good luck to him. Otherwise, Christmas decorations are coming down now that the weather's broke, and we will be out patching potholes, so please call me if you see them. Okay?
Questions for Director Dole? Okay, thank you. Fire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to brag on a couple of my employees. First off, Captain Brett Hardwig completed his master's degree just after this first of the year. He worked hard on it. Graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Platteville with an MS in Organizational Change Leadership. He did use his GI Bill, so it was a benefit that he received, and that here at the fire department we're going to receive as well. So hard work, and I want to congratulate and bring that up to you all. And then also one of our new firefighters, Matt Melanson, graduated from the Rockford Fire Academy, 14-week program. Really a good benefit to the city, the amount of training he received and the amount of certifications he gets through that program. So it's close to home, saves us money with travel. So wanted to bring those two up. They both done very well, and it needs to be brought up. So.
Thank you. Questions for the fire department? Seeing none, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only thing I really have tonight is last year we had our very first Battle of the Badges. I don't know if anybody remembers the basketball game that we had, the police versus the firemen. The second annual is scheduled. Representative Brian Stewart has agreed to officiate again this year, which is always kind of fun. It's kind of a Harlem Globetrotters style of basketball game. It's going to be January 27th at Aquin, 2 o'clock. It's a Saturday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Come on out. We had a great crowd last year. It's free. We take donations for Shop with the Cop, also our Explorer program, and then we're going to see if we can raise some money for the fire department as well. But it's a lot of fun, and I invite everybody to come on out.
Thank you. Questions for police? Seeing none, water and sewer.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. Let's see, one thing I want to put out there that on the main City of Freeport homepage, as well as on Facebook, last week there was outward communication as to what to do if you have no water in the house. Also, with the warmer temperatures we've been expect the next few days, stuff that's water lines that are frozen are going to thaw, and they're going to make themselves known. So be aware of that. And within the last week, basically since New Year's Day, we've had water main breaks that my crews have worked on Hancock, Harlem, Locust, Lewis, and Palmer. So it's throughout the city. And there was a public safety concern with a blocked stormwater inlet over on Walnut. That's been taken care of. And the one last item is that if you see Public Works or water and sewer crews with the amber lights on and their safety vests, appreciate if they can, the drivers driving on by can slow it down a little bit. I was out on one work site today, and I didn't see much in the way of a recognition that, hey, there's people working the street, and I want them all, to clock out at the end of the day like they did when they started their day.
I think we can all appreciate that. Any questions?
Mayor,
Alderman Ross.
Director, in regards to that, what are the chances of putting more barricades around? Because if they see the barricade, they have to slow down.
Well, and it was just some small 5-10 minute job to where it really didn't require the need for barricades. The crews were at the curb, but, you know, the truck was out there with the flashing amber lights.
Okay.
You know, it's not like we had a backhoe out there or we didn't have any holes open in the ground. We were just doing some small, quick tasks. And there didn't seem to be any recognition that staff was working. Staff was working in the street.
Well, the only thing, the reason why I just said that, because if they hit a cone, it's easier for them to hit a cone than hit a worker.
True, true.
That's what I was.
And that's a good point, and I'll look to, you know, incorporate that.
And I just want to commend you guys on the quick response. You guys been on them. I've seen the one on Hancock Street, and before I knew it, it was done.
Exactly.
And that's, let them know they're doing a good job.
Oh, I'll certainly relay it to them. Thank you.
Any further questions? Airport, did you have something you wanted to report tonight?
I had nothing tonight for you.
Then that will conclude our department head reports, and Manager Crowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple quick things here. The water ordinance, Steve and I have completed that. It's out for staff review right now. We should have that turned around. We may be presenting that at the COW for council to review. Well bids are out right now to the test wells. We have completed the negotiations on those properties as we go forward, and we should be we probably will not start drilling the wells until spring because it raises the cost, but this will allow us to get mobilization. We're tasking all of our commissions to meet, and Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, Building Commission, on a monthly basis, and beginning to review all of our ordinances, much as the Liquor Commission has done. And so you will see a complete review of the city ordinances, which have not been done in a while. And we'll be working, Steve, Aaron, and Roxanne will be working with those as we go forward. And there'll be recommendations to make, as you read in my weekend article, to make it more business friendly to continue to grow business in here. And the last thing is we're working, right now, the staff has been reviewing a new workforce flow project. I think that, you know, it's called iWorks. It's spelled IWORQS. It is works with the C-Click Fix app and also allows us to track work order for nuisances and reported potholes. And it reports back to the citizens that reported it once it's completed. We'll be bringing that to council. We did the final demonstration of it today.
Thank you. And I just have one thing to remind the council and the viewing audience that all of our January meetings are moved back by 1 week. And so that means that next Monday, the 15th, the City Hall will be closed in observation of Martin Luther King Day. So that means that the Committee of the Whole will be on Tuesday, and the second council meeting will be the following week on the 22nd. So just to remind that the building will be closed. Alderman Bradshaw.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to remind the public that some of the ward meetings have been changed. We had our first Ward 6 meeting uniquely by itself, January 4th. We had a very slight turnout, only 9 persons total, including the speakers showed up. It was a very cold night, and it was the beginning of January, but we're hoping for a better turnout the next time. Our next meeting will be March 1st, and I do want to thank the Freeport Journal-Standard for printing the schedules for all the ward meetings, and I hope they'll do it again in the months to come because we need that, and I think we need more people involved in Freeport for the safety of all of our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Keister.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick reminder that 7th Ward Neighborhood Watch meets on the 4th Wednesday of the month. We haven't met for the last few months because of the holidays, but they will be meeting this month, main fire station at Walnut and South Street.
Thank you. Alderman Chesney.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman McClanathan.
Nothing further, thank you.
Alderman Ross.
Nothing.
And Alderman
I have
Smith.
nothing, Your Honor.
And Alderman Busker.
Just a reminder of next month, or next week's neighborhood watch meeting for the 5th Ward is going to be on Tuesday at 6 o'clock. I will not be there, obviously, so, but if anyone wants to attend, Officer Leverton gives a good presentation.
Thank you. Which leaves us to item number 21, which would be public comments. Tommy. And I'm going to test out our new timer, so you go ahead and talk.
Nancy O'Donnell, thank you for passing that about the Casey's. And I want to also was about that junk car. Are you going to take care of that?
Yes, we are. That's what I was speaking with Chief Barkalow about earlier before we came in there, and we're gonna continue getting the ball rolling on that.
And Chief, I want to tell you did a good job being the police chief and welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, any other public comments? Seeing none, we will move on to item number 22, which is the executive session. Madam Clerk, would you please read this into the record?
Which one? You need both of them, or which one? Just number one. Pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity.
Thank you. Is there a motion to enter into executive?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross to go into the executive session. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
McClanathan. Ross.
Aye.
Smith. Busker.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.